New York City, the city that never sleeps. A global metropolis where cultures collide and dreams are made. Among the millions of voices that fills its streets, there is a vibrant community of South Africans who have made the Big Apple their home.
I am the type of South African, I still feel like I belong and I want to give back to it.
I wanted to be part of showing the world what Africa can do.
South Africa will always have that pull and always be a home for me.
I miss the food. Even though we can try to make it here and I cook some pap, it's not the same as South African pap.
New York City is calling my name. It's a city where it's very busy. It keeps you on your toes.
People undermine you, and that's just what it is.
It's the land of opportunity. The city never sleeps, as you can hear.
What does it mean to be a South African in a city that is so far removed from the familiar landscapes of Cape Town, Johannesburg or Durban? What does it take to carve out a life in a city so different, yet so full of possibilities? I set out to speak to some South Africans who have made this city their home. From humble beginnings in Amanzimtoti along the KwaZulu-Natal south coast, Marco Mazzati has carved out his life as a formidable lawyer in New York.
I went to the University of KwaZulu-Natal, did a Bachelor of Arts and law school there, and then got a US government scholarship. It was to come to the United States. It was surprising for me. I'd planned a life in South Africa, but it was at a time where we were all talking about, this is late 80s, early 90s, a new constitution for South Africa, and I wanted to study the US constitutional system, and that's what I came to do.
Decades on, Mazzati is still in the United States, having made this his home. Born of immigrant Italian parents in South Africa, Marco Mazzati says he remains South African through and through.
I did not make an active decision to leave South Africa. I am South African. It is part of me. I still visit constantly. I've invested in the country. So I never made the decision to immigrate. I made the decision to come to school here. I met someone. I started a family.
Mazzati is currently a partner here at one of New York's leading law firms. For over 25 years, he's led and built the firm's private funds team into one of the most elite practices in the United States.
I am the type of South African, I still feel like I belong and I want to give back to it.
And giving back to South Africa is just what Marco Mazzati did. Back in 2021, Mazzati became the controlling partner of the Sharks Rugby Club in Durban. The longtime Sharks fan was now the club's owner.
Rugby is a way that expat South Africans feel connected to their South African heritage, and it was certainly that way for me. It was a long journey from Mandela to Kolisi, but I realized in looking at the Sharks, and it was in the middle of the COVID, and looking at my life, your life is in three parts. You learn, you earn, and you return. And as I'm entering the return part of my life, I realized an investment in rugby, an investment in South Africa, embodied everything that I was interested in, feeling more reconnected to the country. I'm interested in community building, mentoring and education. These are young people who have wonderful values and are future leaders in the business community in South Africa. So I realized it embodied everything that I was interested in.
Mazzati believes that sport can be a vehicle for change and that his acquisition of the Sharks is just one pathway in his pre-retirement journey to give back to the country.
It gives us something to talk about and connect. So it's very important globally. But in South Africa, it has a very, very unique history. South Africa's, really a sporting, given the great weather, given the people. It's a sporting nation, and it has a unique place in South African culture, and especially rugby. It is something that's part and parcel of the nation-building exercise. It's a way all South Africans have come together. And the Springboks, as an example, and even the Sharks, when you see the diversity of South Africa represented on the field, you appreciate that working together, greatness is achievable.
Earlier this year, Maati managed to lure Springbok captain Siya Kolisi back to the Sharks after his French club terminated his contract after only one season. I have to ask you this question. How important was it to bring Siya back to the Sharks?
So it wasn't just that he came back, because he convinced his best friend Eben Etzebeth to come back, and he's a magnet of people. So, Vincent and I regard him as being our partner in this enterprise. He's helped us build it, and we think we've got a fantastic business, and a fantastic rugby team. So it was massively important.
And as he sips another victory drink for his team at the Shark Tank, Marco Maati is convinced he has made one of the best investments in his life. Living in New York is not easy, not to talk about the cold winter days. So different is the life here to back home. But one thing's for sure, New York City is a city where you can follow your dreams.
You think I don't care? I care too much.
She's a South African R&B singing sensation, but her singing career moved up several octaves after participating in a Chinese series, Sing China, a singing competition similar to the popular show The Voice.
My name is Mo. I am from the purple, beautiful streets of Pretoria, South Africa, born and raised. I am a singer, I'm a songwriter, I'm a traveler, I'm a global ambassador for South Africa, multi-award winning musician.
On a cold New York morning, I meet Motswedi Modiba, commonly known as Mo, after one of her studio recording sessions. A girl from Pretoria speaking Chinese Mandarin, how did that happen?
So, a lot of people say, why can you speak Chinese? So I'm going to set the record straight. It wasn't my choice. My dad decided that looking at the world trends at that time, he kind of figured that China would probably become a really important player in the economic space, and having the advantage to speak Mandarin is really important. So I started learning when I was 5 at the Pretoria Chinese School. And from then on, I just kind of took the opportunities that came.
And the opportunities kept coming. With a social media following on TikTok of close to 800,000, Mo says her music and her content has seen her attracting fans from all over the world. But it wasn't until she opened a Chinese social media account that she got noticed by a massive audience in East Asia.
It's really incredible what social media can do for you in terms of reaching an international audience. I started my Western TikTok, or the TikTok that we all know, off a whim. During COVID, I was bored, and from then on, instantly, it kind of took off, and I was able to reach audiences in Brazil, in the US, in Nigeria, in Australia, and so just having that exposure and that experience really opened my mind to realize that social media is an extremely powerful tool. That's kind of where most started, I think, off of social media, people saying, we want to hear more of this.
And more the audiences got, being the first African and the first South African to perform in China's biggest music competition. 135 million viewers tuned in to watch that show.
It was unreal. It was unreal. I don't think I have the words to explain the moment that I walked onto that stage, and it was like the blind audition moment, and I knew that not only am I representing Mo, but I'm representing an entire nation, a people, a culture, a community where so many people in that region have never seen anything like this. They've never seen a Black African woman, or if they have, a lot of the stereotypes sometimes get in the way of experiencing what and who we really are. And so I really would say that it was very hard. I will say, like you say, it's one of the biggest productions in the world. I got there a month before the audition that everybody saw, and it was very rigorous. I think I was recording at least 7 to 8 songs every week just to prepare for the competition, because it is that demanding. It really was life-changing in a lot of ways. I think the exposure also that it gave me, not just in China, but also internationally, I think it really resonated with a lot of people that South Africans can do incredible things. I think we're a very resilient, very talented, very creative group of people, and there's nothing that is impossible for us if we put our mind to it. And so, yeah, it was really a life-changing experience for me, one that I'll forever be grateful for.
Motswedi now lives in New York City. She first came here in 2022 to study for a master's degree in jazz art at the Manhattan School of Music. But the singing has not stopped and she intends to take it further, hoping to collaborate with producers here in the city.
I will say there is no city in the world like New York. I absolutely love it here. They really say it's the land of opportunity, and it really is. The city never sleeps, as you can hear. It never sleeps. This is what it sounds like all the time. I think in the short time that I've been here, the things that I've been able to be a part of, the spaces that I've been able to perform in, meet people in, just exist in, have been so incredible. And I think it's really just a blessing for me. And I'm really just grateful to God that I'm able to exist in a time like this and be in a place like this, because I can really see even just my dreams coming to fruition here. You know, there are pathways and opportunities that I've been able to take advantage of that I know you would never find anywhere else in the world. You can see that this person is South African because we carry a culture, we carry a spirit, a resilience, a vibe that is undeniable, and that it's just so South African that I think one thing that people will experience when they have the opportunity to travel is that we don't lose our South Africanness, and it's actually what we hold on to the most when we're outside of the country. A lot of us go back and forth at home, and we're not leaving because we don't want to be home, but we're leaving because we understand that there are bigger opportunities to learn things that we wouldn't find back home. And I know for a lot of us, we're not coming here and then like, oh, we're never going back, but we're here to learn so that we can go back and help people back home and say, hey guys, the world really is your oyster. I think there is so much opportunity outside. There's a lot of opportunity at home, but there's a lot of opportunity outside. And traveling is good. Traveling is good. It opens up your mind unlike anything else in the world. And so I would say to the people that say, oh, South Africans, you guys are leaving the country, leaving us high and dry. We're really not. We are coming to learn so that we can come back and help. And not necessarily that, you know, everything good is outside, but we're also coming here to teach as well. You know, our American friends, our international friends that are here, by them experiencing us, they experience a piece of South Africa. And by experiencing that great piece of South Africa, that makes them want to go to our home, which I think as a global ambassador even is so important to me, that I'm not just taking in, but I'm also sharing what it means to be a South African.
For any model, working out and keeping your body in shape is a top priority. Eugene McNeil, now based here in New York, has walked the runways from the time he was in high school.
I am a small boytjie from Kraaifontein, Scottsville to be very specific. I grew up practically amongst my peers, you know, my cousins. I was a grandma's boy, growing up with my grandma, my mom's, in just like these, practically in the Cape Flats, I would say. And yes, I was a boy that was really passionate about athletics. And as I grew up within the athletics, you know, things started like kicking off when it came to modeling.
His story reads like a fairy tale novel. Modeling was never intended to be part of that story.
I went to a good friend of mine's wedding, which I was the best man. And there was a guy named Shane that was a stylist at the time. And Shane, at the time, he didn't recognize me until the photos came out, and he was like, who is this kid? And he practically gave me an opportunity. He said, hey, you know what, do you want to come over to my store out in Woodstock? We put on a couple of looks, I would say at that age around, I think 2012, and we did some portfolio work. So I did some photo shoots with him. I was really, honestly unrecognizable when it comes to certain photo shoots. I was still uncomfortable and all these different things. I was just a skinny boy at the time. But yeah, that ended up giving me the opportunity to pretty much have a book where I could represent it to different agencies in Cape Town. And I must say, I went to quite a few that at the time I was, I think, 15 years old. I was still very young, so I don't think they wanted to sign me at that age.
He eventually got signed, and as the age-old saying goes, the rest is history. Shortly after being scooped up by base models in Cape Town, this young boy from Cape Town's life was turned upside down.
I'm not kidding you, a month later, this was around, I would say April, May. Signed the contract. A month later, around June of 2013, I got told by my agent that Salvatore Ferragamo wants to see you. We have an agency in Milan that wants to sign you. It was Fashion at the time, one of the top agencies out there. I did shows for like Port 1961. I had Calvin Klein send a suit directly to Cape Town just so I can fit it for his shows. So it was very unfamiliar to me. Everything I YouTubed, I Googled at the time. Internet was also just like, all kind of like a thing, a nuance. But it was a surreal experience, being able to travel at 15 and 16 and being able to do the runways and be able to do my schoolwork and be able to participate in sports at the time.
I met Eugene during one of his gym training sessions in downtown New York. It was here where he explained how he managed being a sought-after model and trying to finish school.
I missed out on quite a few days in school, but I made sure to take my books with me on all my trips, being able to study, come back from my exams, my essays, and also like majority of the functions that we have, like a matric ball, which is iconic, going to the matric ball. So fearfully, I always wanted to do like the matric balls at the time. I never wanted to miss one. I remember at the time, I had to say no to a job because I just wanted to be home with my friends because I also missed out on so much already.
For many South Africans, the journey to New York is motivated by the desire for new opportunities. The city promises a fresh start, but the challenges of adapting to a new life are never easy.
In New York City, you could find a community of people, but not community as central as where you grew up. Something such as where I grew up in Kraaifontein, going to church, the Methodist, being involved in Sunday school, being involved with like all the like young kid programs that we have out there as well. I think that is the kind of community that I miss a lot.
Eugene now has his eyes set on Los Angeles. He wants to leave the city of dreams to move to Tinseltown, hoping to expand his horizons in the US's entertainment capital. The bright lights of Times Square are as iconic as the Eiffel Tower in Paris and the pyramids of Giza in Egypt. And a visit to New York is not complete without visiting this spot. But one thing you can't avoid amongst the mecca of colorful screens are these massive billboards of the Lion King. For more than 2 decades, this award-winning musical has dazzled theatre-goers with its breathtaking visuals, iconic music and timeless story. From the very first note of the Circle of Life, The Lion King transports audiences into the world of Simba, Nala and Mufasa. Lindiwe Dlamini is one of the original cast members.
I think now Lion King is part of who I am. I've been in Lion King for this is going to be 27 years now, since the beginning. So there's no other way but being part of me.
Even after nearly 3 decades, Lindiwe says she still gets nervous before each curtain call, adding that she cannot see a life without the Lion King.
I was in Lion King when I lost my father. I was in Lion King when I lost my mother. I was in Lion King when I lost my younger sister. I was in Lion King when I had my daughter, So it's really, really, really part of me like that. I have so many people that have left the show that are like family to me, And for me, the most thing I'm proud of is that they have employed so many South Africans who have come after me and after all of us who started as original cast members.
Hailing from Umlazi, southwest of Durban, Dlamini's first taste of the arts and theatre began, like so many others, in church. In the 1980s, she was spotted by renowned South African playwright Mokena Ngema. Her first experience with Broadway was this production, Sarafina, which opened here in New York in January 1988.
At the Court Theatre on Broadway, the music of liberation, Sarafina.
An opportunity came to come to America with Sarafina. So the way we were found, we were in a church, And then Bongeningema had us singing, and then they drove right inside the church. And then he asked my father if he can take my sister, actually, at first. Yeah, and then when he heard us singing, he said, "Oh, no, can I please take both of them?" And then, you know, it was like, my father's like, "Oh, no, you can't take both my kids, you know." I was 18, and my younger sister was 16, you know. And she used to sing with one of the girls, Baby Tele. I think maybe you know Baby Tele in South Africa. She's a big actress right now. So she used to sing with her in school. So he took both of us and Baby Tele. We all moved to Johannesburg with him, you know. And then we started rehearsals with Sarafina. And that time it was during apartheid. So it was very, very, very hard.
But once she landed in New York City, she never left. A journey in the city of dreams following Sarafina's success on Broadway was not easy.
When everybody left, I stayed. And there was a struggle for me as a South African to get other, you know, roles, you know, auditioning. And then I kept auditioning. I would call home. I'm like, I'm giving up. I gotta go back home because there's nothing for me. And my father said, just hold on, just keep trying.
And her holding on paid off. She eventually got a role in The Lion King in 1997. Dlamini explains just how nervous she was on the first day of auditioning.
You know, I was nervous. I was so nervous. And then I started singing and kept singing. And then Lebo said, "Just sing the national anthem of South Africa." So I started singing that, and they were amazed. And then, he said, "You got this, you got this." And then when they called me, I said, "You got it." I was so happy because I thought I have lost, you know, after working so hard to find something for like years, you know, being here. And then I got it. I got The Lion King.
While The Lion King might be home for her here in New York City, Dlamini says South Africa will always be home and a culture she will carry with her forever.
I have so much pride with my culture that I never want to lose that. I never want to lose where I come from. I think that keeps me grounded, that keeps me, be kind, you know, just be grounded, you know, that because I think if I didn't have that, I'll be just all over the place, you know.
While Lindiwe has no plans to depart from a new home here in the United States, she says she'll continue to be a proud South African, no matter where in the world her work will take her. When he was a young boy growing up in Kuils River, Cape Town, Justin Davy says he always knew he wanted to be an artist, but never dreamed that his art would one day really bring him to New York City.
I also recently found out, my father told me that I drew a picture of myself with very tall buildings, and I told myself that I would be in New York one day. And I only realized that recently, after moving to New York, that I had put this plan in motion almost 30 years ago.
After working for the Goodman Gallery in Johannesburg, Justin's wife landed a job in New York. He moved with her, and his Johannesburg bosses thought it a great idea for him to head up what would now become the Goodman Gallery, New York.
In Goodman Gallery's case specifically, it's always been an internationally focused gallery. We've always been looking outward, of course, with South Africa as our base and where most of our artists come from. The gallery was started in 1966 by Lindiwe, who later became Goodman, and it's always had this ethos of looking outwards and bringing everybody in across the cultural spectrum. It was a bastion of open and honest conversations around art during the apartheid era. It was a pioneer in showing artists of different colors in the same exhibition when that was often illegal or could get one in jail. And so there's a legacy with the gallery that I'm just participating in the last few years. I'm just continuing that, bringing that to New York.
New York City is not just home to world-renowned museums. It's also a hub for contemporary art galleries where emerging artists, groundbreaking exhibitions and creative innovation come together to shape the future of the art world. The Goodman Gallery is one of around 1,400 galleries across the city.
We've had about 10 exhibitions, some of them group shows, some of them solo shows.
Okay. And have they mostly been South African or African artists?
Mostly South African and African, yeah. So we represent African artists and from the diaspora, but also artists from the global south.
Okay. And what is the sort of like the uptake been in New York, especially with South African art?
It's been a little bit slow. We often find that there's a lot of education that needs to happen. People have a certain idea of what African art is, and we're here to kind of bust that image and show them what's really happening in terms of the art world in South Africa.
On the day we visited the gallery, they were showcasing the works of the late Ghanaian-born artist and art historian Atta Kwame. His colorful works of vibrant geometric patterns are inspired by a wide range of influences, Justin tells me, showcasing the tradition of mural paintings and the design of street kiosks along the roads of West African towns.
He kind of pioneered a form of abstraction inspired by the landscape and the environment around him in Ghana. So a lot of what you see, the kind of the geometric abstraction, comes from a lot of the architecture and structures around the cities that he lived in. If you see the stripes, a lot of the stripes are related to what he calls kiosks. Okay. So if you think in the South African context, we call them spaza shops on the side of the road or in neighborhoods that are often makeshift structures, often with zinc, corrugated zinc and other kinds of materials that are used. And so he is inspired by these materials which, you know, in many ways are geometrically abstracted, but not in a kind of Western sense.
While talking art with Justin Davy, one cannot escape asking him about home and what he misses the most about South Africa.
I get emotional sometimes thinking of home. Of course, I miss South Africa as a place with a multitude of places and cultures and languages. I have different strategies of keeping myself connected to home. I have a young daughter and I sing Nkosi Sikelele as a lullaby every night to her, and she now knows the words. So that's one way I keep myself and her connected to back home. But I think if I had to sum it up in one word or one sentence, I think it would be resilience. You know, we have all across the cultural spectrum, we've gone through a lot as a country. We're still kind of finding our feet as a young nation in the family of nations. And I think, you know, we as South Africans have resilience. We bounce back. We are able to find joy and laughter and humor in any situation. Often when I travel and I travel with other South Africans are always the first to know where the party is, where the good music is, where the braai is, the best food is in any location in the world.
And while food is the one thing he misses most, Justin has no immediate intentions of returning to South Africa. He is set to make a name for himself right here in the very competitive New York art scene. The New York City skyline is one of the most recognizable in the world and a living testament to the evolution of architecture. And what better city to find yourself in if you're an architect yourself? Mokena Makeka is an award-winning architect and a globally recognized expert on urban design and strategy.
As a practicing architect, I've had the privilege of doing really amazing projects in South Africa. The country that I love and that has educated me and has given me so many opportunities, whether it's public infrastructure, playing a role with regards to the Institute of Architects, where I was the former president, acting as an advisor to the Minister of Housing and Human Settlements and being able to inform national policy. Now you come to a place like New York where, because of those values and let's call it attributes, you can arrive here. But it doesn't necessarily mean that you land here and now I'm now advising the mayor of New York on housing policy. It does. So in some ways you recalibrate to this different environment.
But despite this being a tough city to break through in his profession, Mokena is confident he will succeed. He currently holds the position of the Special Advisor to the Vice President of Academic Affairs of the Cooper Union, one of New York's leading schools of architecture, art and engineering.
I was not raised in a world where architecture was something that we knew as a course or a discipline or even a career. I remember drawing houses as a kid. I remember drawing cars as a kid. I wanted to be an aeronautical engineer. That actually was my first passion. I stumbled upon architecture through a very vivid argument with somebody on a plane who basically dared me to study architecture, and I found this whole other world. Now, architecture I think is interesting because it marries both sides of my mind, the artistic mind and the technical mind. I love physics, I love maths. I love also the philosophy of quantum mechanics. I also love art. I love, and it's the one discipline where you bring all of these things together. And what I realized through that is a lot of the challenges that we have in South Africa, in terms of the legacy of apartheid, in terms of planning, spatial justice, economic opportunity, is intimately tied to, let's call it the pact that happened between spatial planners and the apartheid regime and even the colonial regime.
Mokena Makeka believes in the power of design in order to better people's lives. His guiding philosophy, he says, is enriching people through architectural, environmental, sustainable projects. Back home, he is well known for innovative designs, specifically for his 2014 rebuild of the Cape Town main station.
Understanding the social impact of architecture has pretty much been my mission. So I love to design. I love design. But I was never into architecture for design's sake. I was into it because if you can make an incredible building in a township, if you can have an impact on public transport, if you can think about how a school can support a community and make it beautiful, that goes back to my point earlier about honoring the investment of the people who came before me. I know many people think of architecture as buildings. I see them as engines of progress.
While living in South Africa, Mokena designed many buildings, which he says has contributed significantly to the communities they were intended for.
I think a good architect and a good designer looks at the situation that's in front of them and in some ways maybe strips away their prejudices or strips away their let's call it their spreadsheet that says this is how it's done, and ask the question, what is required for this particular place? So you need to be curious, you need to be humble, you need to not think that the next building should look like your last one because you have a style that you have to maintain. You need to ask yourself, who is the community here and what is their most important need?
Now an academic, Mokena says his life in New York is just another stepping stone, a place for him to learn and then take that knowledge back home eventually.
I know that I don't know enough yet, so I needed to be in a place that was going to challenge me. I want to be honest about that. I had reached a certain comfort zone back home. I'd even say maybe even a bit of a ceiling in terms of what I was able to achieve, because in many respects, South Africa is a place of exceptional opportunity. But make no mistake, the apartheid barriers around capital still remain profound. As an architect, I found that I've done a lot of public work, but my ability to do private work is not the same. And it goes down to simply our histories. Private work sits in one capital bucket and state work sits in another bucket. I wanted to be part of showing the world what Africa can do. That's always been so important to me because changing narratives is so important.
New York demands that you adapt quickly or risk being left behind. It's a place of contradictions. It promises opportunity, but also demands a sacrifice. Some say it'll never really be home.
I miss seeing myself. Now, what I mean by that is, New York is a place of anonymity. It's a place of over 800 languages, 8.5 million people, so you can disappear. When you're back home, you can't disappear. People know you, you see yourself. There's a recognition, whether you're going to a restaurant, whether you're out in the streets and so on. South Africa is a mirror of who you are. And whereas New York is not a mirror, New York is a tunnel. You go into it and you might come out at the other end as something different. So I miss hearing my language being spoken ordinarily. I miss being able to have trilingual conversations at a bar. So moving between English and Sesotho, reflexively. I miss my children. They're also in Johannesburg. I probably miss them the most. I mean, and it hurts to kind of feel like a migrant laborer sending remittances. I'm a modern miner in some respects.
Architecture, they say, is not just about a building, but creating a better, more sustainable future. Something Makeka says it's all about pushing the boundaries and marrying creativity with sustainability. New York at night. It really is the city that never sleeps, as revelers continuously seek a new adventure. Inside New York's club scene, a new sound has been pulsating. Amapiano, a genre that blends deep house, jazz and traditional South African rhythms, has exploded in popularity over the last few years. Born in the townships of South Africa, this infectious sound has captivated music lovers worldwide, and now it's finding a home in the heart of New York City. You are seen as the DJ that popularized amapiano in New York. How did you get to do that?
Can you believe that? Yeah, I believe it, because I saw that there was something lacking there. I'll always give credit to Afrobeats and West African artists for opening the doors for amapiano, for African music, period. Because even when I started DJing, a lot of the African music you would hear was like the Davidos, the Wizkids, and I would incorporate those into my set while playing, So I had to teach people. I'm still teaching people to this day. People still don't know how to differentiate Afrobeats and amapiano. You know what I'm saying? So I've always been teaching, and I'm never going to stop. I don't think we're ever going to stop, especially with African music. We're still at a point where people need to learn the difference between everything. But yeah, I just saw something was lacking, really. I just saw that people needed to hear what it is that my culture is, what it is that I experience when I go back home.
Khadija Bar, known to many as DJ Aqutie, is a Harlem native of South African descent. Her parents having moved to the city back in the 1980s. DJ Aqutie says South Africa lives in her soul and in her craft. She adds that her mission as an amapiano DJ is to make everyone aware that it's a South African music form.
I started doing music in the church, by singing, by dancing in the choir. I grew up playing the violin, so I would play the violin at church. Me and my mom used to sing together as well. Me, my cousin, and my mom, we were like a singing trio. And she just always encouraged me to embrace that artistic side of myself. She's always given me that freedom to do so. And also, she's a musical person too, so I think that's how it came about. She just influenced me to want to, do what it is that also inspires her. And that's how the music came about. And now, 30 years later, I'm doing it as a profession. I guess you can say I knew that I would be doing music. I just didn't know at what capacity. DJing is what really set it off. And now that I'm getting into my artistry as a producer, now I'm able to create music that I play.
What started out as a unique South African sound has quickly become a global sensation. From South Africa to the global stage, amapiano has not only become a musical revolution, but it's somewhat of a cultural wave that seems to be shaping the future of music. And here in New York City, it's no doubt become a club favorite.
People are just gonna, they hear some drums and some foreign languages that sound African, they're just gonna make everything sound African, So it's also up to people to wanna be willing to learn and understand the different things that are happening on the continent. It's mad countries on there. We're not all making the same thing. We're not all making Afrobeats. You go to Ivory Coast, they're doing their thing. You go to Kenya, they're doing their thing. So, we still have a lot of work to do.
On a weekly basis, DJ Aqutie continues spinning the decks on the New York club scene. And while the beat of the lug drum is still playing, Khadija Ba says her art form will not stop. This city is not just a place to build a new life, it's a canvas on which you paint your own stories. And with each passing day, you continue to write your own narrative, blending the spirit of South Africa with the energy of this great city.
It's harder to be here because you have to be somewhat humble to be here, because you almost start from zero again, right? You have to reestablish yourself, you have to recreate your narrative. It's a different country, different cultures, different background.
Because everybody's trying to make it in New York. We're all artists. We're all creatives here. Like, people come to New York for greener pastures, and they're working 3 jobs.
New York is not a place to come and just like lolly-daddy, just like try to figure it out. It's like, it's go as soon as you get here.
This industry will show you that, will show you flames. Music is not an easy profession.
Sport as a whole can provide a very meaningful vehicle for bringing South Africans together. It's the way we, it's the way we interact with each other. It doesn't matter where you come from, rich, poor, rural, urban, doesn't matter what your race is or your orientation. By forcing people to come together around a narrative, they communicate, they get to know each other.
South Africa is one unique place, one of the best places. But one thing that you'll find right there that is really different, that stands out from the rest of the world, is going to be our culture, our food, and our personality. I haven't come across any person that has met a South African and told me that they are unfriendly.
There's no place like South Africa. I don't know how many years I've been here, but when I go home, just the people, South African people.
As South Africans, we are not just citizens of South Africa, we are citizens of the world, and the world belongs to us. And so being here is not me giving up on the people back home. In my small way, I feel like I'm representing where I come from, my small neighborhood, my city, my country.
We have a lot of hope, and we still have a lot of challenges.
People are going through a lot in South Africa. There's so much poverty right now, hunger.
We have to, at some point, overcome those challenges. We can't just say, look, we got these challenges, and as South Africans, we will figure them out, like we always have, right?
We need to go back and remember, don't leave people behind. We are leaving people behind right now.
When I'm here, 50% of my conversation is about how can I be more useful to not only South Africa and Africa, but to better understandings of Africa.
The reason why I'm here is because of home. I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for South Africa.
Joburg is like New York, Cape Town is like LA, and Durban is like Miami.
South Africa will always have that pull and always be a home for me. Of course, we've got challenges back home that are different to the challenges we face in places like New York or part of the kind of the West.
I see the challenges, and I see the legacy of the past still hangs over South Africans a little.
Talking the talk and walking the walk of saying that Africa is a place of opportunity means that we also have to be explorers, we also have to be pioneers, we also have to be ambassadors, we have to build bridges back home.
I have so much pride with my culture that I never want to lose that. I never want to lose where I come from. I think that keeps me grounded.
Being in a big city like this, can be very lonely, which might seem like a contradiction because there's so many people.
As soon as you can enter a room, or as soon as you can wear a South African Springbok t-shirt in a train subway station in New York City, and as soon as you connect eyes with another South African, that connection that you have there immediately, someone telling you, oh, where, like, how is it, maybe, or like, oh, where in Cape Town you from? That genuine coming togetherness is running through our blood.
I'm proud of South Africa, absolutely proud. I'm proud of its people. I'm proud of people like you. I'm proud of just to be here. I'm proud of where we come, but I know that we're still doing the work, you know.
In this global metropolis, the journey is never truly over. It's just another chapter waiting to be lived. And so in the heart of New York, the spirit of South Africa finds a home, alive, thriving, and always evolving.